Hello Brendan, this is the test video for your 2000 to 2003 LS430 for plug and play into an IS200. So obviously we've got a half cut from an IS200, and you'll see you've got your two ECU plugs that go in there. You've got your black, your blue and your grey, so they just plug straight into there, and then you've got your ECU plugs there. Your grommet that goes into the opening here of your ECU box comes up along here, goes into a plastic cover over there, which you'll see is bolted down there and over there. From there you've got your injector and coil 1 coming out of here. Moving further along, you've got your next piece of plastic, and that's bolted on there and there. And this little thing is for a noise filter, which normally bolts onto one of these bolt holes here, and it just plugs in over there. But coming along here, obviously this opening is for your cylinder 3 coil and injector, and your VVL cam sensor, or variable valve timing left cam sensor. It's for the intake cam. Moving along, your next opening, obviously you've got cylinder 5, you've got injector and coil. Moving along to the last one, and you've got an opening down here to injector and coil 7 for cylinder 7. Moving along now, down here, you've got your big piece of plastic at the back. You'll see there's a bolt hole down there, and there's a bolt hole down there holding this one on. You've got your plug, which goes off to your what I call the sub harness underneath, which goes to your knock sensors and your starter motor. Coming out of there, obviously this is going to be your starter, so this one will plug it just directly into your battery positive terminal over there. Okay, and then moving further along, coming over to this side now, so again same setup. You've just got 4 breakout points over here, so this will do cylinder 8 and your ACIS, which is your acoustic control reduction system plug. They'll come out there. Moving along there, obviously we've got injector 6 and coil 6. As moving along here, we've got your VVT-i, VVLR cam sensor, injector 2 and coil 2. Moving further along to the front here, we've obviously got injector 2 and coil 2. So that's 4, this is 2. Also coming out here, we've got your coolant temp sensor, which plugs directly into your sensor there. You've got your drive-by-wire motor at the front here. You've got your oil control valve over there. Coming down here, the one we've got coming up here is to your MAF sensor. So there's your MAF sensor. Make sure you've got the correct orientation. So if it is facing this way, so if I go slightly up on the engine, if it's this way orientated, plug facing away from you. Obviously if this was on the other side, plug facing towards the driver on the car there, okay? Coming down here, we've got now your 3-pin alternator plug over there. Underneath here, we've got your lambda sensor plug over there. So on these ones, on the 3UZ, you've got a long lambda sensor on this side. And we've got an LS430 with a mid sump here, but you'll have the front sump. So there's your oil level sensor, which will go into the front sump over there. Okay, so that's that side covered. What we're going to do now is go around to the other side here. And coming out of this piece of plastic over here, you've got your oil control valve here. You've got your TPS plug there. Coming down along here, you've got your cam sensor over there. On your cover here, you've got 2 holes for plastic mounts so that you can mount the harness over there. Coming down here through this little hole over here, and underneath here, you've then got your crank sensor and your oil pressure switch. Now, this is for an LS430, so this oil filter housing sticks out. This is not going to work in your case. Obviously, you're going to have the one that comes out towards the back here, and the oil is split right up at the top here. So that can go through this little cavity there, but then come down this side to go to the oil filter. Switch will be at the back of the housing over there, okay? And the other one that you need to know is down on this side, you've got your lambda sensor, which goes through there. So just make sure there's a metal heat shield that gets bolted on here. Make sure that's still intact and that this goes behind it, otherwise you're going to end up melting your plugs, etc. Okay? And then the last bit is your gearbox harness. So that comes out of this section over here. I've got it dangling along here because we're going to be doing testing like the reverse light and the speed sensor over there. So that's that for you. So that pretty much covers everything of the harness. I will show you at the end of the video the photo underneath of what it looks like, so you can differentiate between which plug goes on which knock sensor. So that'll be coming up at the end there for you, so do stick around for that. And then that's about it really. So again, super straightforward. Everything inside the ECU box just plugs into all your existing plugs that are there. You're going to connect the starter to the main power. You're going to connect your alternator over here, and that'll run under the subframe up and then bolt onto the alternator there where you saw that grey cap over there. So that's a little bolt on section there. Okay, so that just runs under the subframe and up to the battery over there. Then in terms of your earthing, your earth and your battery goes underneath your battery, bolts to the chassis down there, comes back down, and I'm just going to quickly scoot around so you can see. So there's a cable that you should have. Obviously that would be on the battery terminal. Coming down over there, you can see the cable. There you go. You can see it down there running along the chassis leg there. I take it down and then you can bolt it onto the block. Okay, so just down here you can see there's plenty of spaces I've bolted by in there. You can bolt it on the engine mount. If it reaches this far forward, I don't think it does, but further back there's even more mounts as well. So plenty of room there. And then for the last earth, what I normally do is I use the IS200 earth. So if you have a look over here, you'll see there's a bolt hole there. Now obviously you'll remove this pipe because it's just a join for the vacuum hose. So remove the pipe, but just leave this in place, and then you can run an earth from there to the back of your cylinder head. So you'll see you've got plenty of holes here. There's a hole, there's a hole. That's one where your original harness earths. Same on this side, there's a hole and there's another hole underneath there. So you've got plenty of holes to do. You don't have to put it on top of another earth. Just these two are for the harness. Pick another one and then run an earth strap to the back there. That should get you all good in terms of that. So now that we've covered how to fit the harness on the engine and how to do that, we're going to quickly run through the test that we're going to carry out today. I'm just going to shine the lights away because it's too bright. Right, so starting off, we're going to look at the ambient temperature because that gets sensed by the ECU and transmitted. So that, what I mean by ambient is outside temp. We'll go have a look on the interior and you'll see the display there. We'll look at the charge light and the oil pressure light. So obviously we've got all the clocks hooked up to the half cut. Okay, then we'll look at the reverse. So we're going to bridge the reverse switch over there. That's going to cause the beeping to come on. That tells me that the reverse circuit's working fine, and when you stick it in reverse, obviously the reverse lights will come on. We're going to do the OBD2 test, which is effectively just connecting up our scanner here and make sure that talks to the ECU and we can communicate everything fine. We're going to test the fuel pump relay. So obviously we've got our fuel pump hooked up over here. You'll see it's actually hooked up with a plug that I've actually taken all the way to the inside of the car, and I've actually wired to the original wire. So that fuel pump is actually running through the fuse box over there, and so on. Now in your case, because it's an LS430, it is controlled via the ECU. I do have a video on fuel pump systems, so if you want, just quickly go look to the playlist. I think it says The More You Know, and it'll explain to you exactly how that does work. But simply for you, so you don't get confused, it does not prime. It only runs when it gets a start signal or a crank signal. This is a non-return fuel system on here. It's a deadhead system. So in your IS200 was also a deadhead system, so there's nothing you have to do. You literally just bolt the banjo onto the fuel rail at the back, which is over here, exactly like I've done here, and you attach it to your existing fuel line, and that's it. If you have an old fuel pump, obviously I recommend you replace it. If you've never replaced the fuel filter that lives inside the fuel tank, I'd also recommend you replace that. But other than that, nothing you need to do. In standard trim, it'll work absolutely fine. Okay. Now, obviously, we have included the AC because it's a plug and play, and we have all the communication that we need for it. So the AC system will work. Obviously, a lot of you guys don't connect it, but it is there. And so if you ever wanted to pass the harness on or sell it on, it's all built in so that the next person could use it if they wanted to. Okay. All right. And then what we're going to do is we're going to get the engine running, and then we're going to test things like the drive-by-wire. Obviously, we're going to press the pedal down there. Okay, and then we're going to look at the starter circuit, which will be tested the second we start it up. We're going to look at the ACIS, or acoustic control induction system. So that's this little valve over here. I've done a video on exactly how that works, but all we're looking for is that to go down. Okay, and then obviously I don't think I mentioned the pedal. Obviously the pedal comes out of the harness here, and that'll go through your firewall there and into the pedal, and obviously this is your pedal that you're being provided. Next thing we're going to do, we're going to test the oil control valve solenoids. So that's these two over here. You've got one on either side. So what the system is going to do, you'll be able to read at the bottom here as I go through the menu. Obviously when the engine's running, it's going to be super loud, so I'll try and stay on there for a little bit so you can read. Effectively it moves the cams around, so you hear the engine go all lumpy as soon as I do it, but we'll be following the screen the whole time and you'll be able to hear the notes of the engine change. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull off all the injectors one by one and show you that the engine is misfiring as I pull out each and every one, so you can see all cylinders are firing correctly and everything is fine. Then what we'll do is we'll look at the tacho. So the tacho will obviously display on the clocks here. Okay, and what's effectively going to happen is we've actually got this device because the 3UZ puts out a 4-cylinder signal. You need a 6-cylinder signal. So I've calibrated this already with the engine running in my initial tests, obviously. So this should be fine, but if you do need more calibration, then what we'll do is, I'm sure I've done a video, if not I will in the not too distant future, on how to calibrate the RPM signal on this one. Okay, And there is one thing I missed off of here, and I do apologize, sorry, the speed signal. So you're using a J160, so what we're going to do is we're going to force feed a speed signal down into this connector, which goes directly to your speed sensor, and we're going to check that it works on the clocks as well, okay? And then last but not least, we'll do coolant temp. I leave that till last because I give the engine a chance to warm up. Obviously, it's not going to display on there if it's not warm. So first thing we're going to do now is we're going to start by putting the ignition on and start running through all those tests. So as it is a half cut, all you've basically got to do is jump in, turn your key on, moving over to here. You'll see the outside temp is showing us 18 degrees, so that's absolutely fine and working as it should. It hasn't got error or a dot next to it. Looking at the clocks over there, we've got our check engine light, we've got our battery light, and we've got our oil pressure light. Now, the TRC system on these is obviously not the VSC system that was used on the LS430, so do remember you do need to remove the TSC bulbs, okay? TRC bulbs, sorry. They're just in the back, you just pull them out, boom, done, all right? But everything else should work fine, okay? So you can see we've got our charge light, we've got our oil pressure light, we've got our check engine light. So next up what I'm going to do is we're just going to test the reverse switch. So again, there's your reverse switch for your gearbox. I'm just basically going to bridge these together, which is effectively what your reverse switch does. And as I do, so there, just bridge them together, you can hear the beep of the reverse. So I'm happy with that. We'll get rid of that out the way. Okay, I'm just going to jump into the speed test while we're here as well. Okay, so basically this is there's two things I test here, and that is it's a Hall effect style sensor. So you've got 3 wires. So we've got 12 volts ground and the signal coming out. So I'm using the 12 volts in the ground directly from this plug, which powers up this system. You can see the flashing LED. So I know that the 12 volts in the grounds are absolutely fine there. So all I'm going to do now is put it into the test mode. So just bear with me a second. Okay. There you go. Okay, and all I'm going to do now is I'm going to feed a signal to that. So that's my yellow wire going in there. And as you can see on the clocks, it's now showing a speed. Okay. So now that that's done over there, what we'll do is we'll go over to the OBD2 machine just so that you can see that it is actually connecting. Okay, so we can see all the live data there, 51 degrees, 23 degrees of intake air temp, etc. I'm going to go over to function and system select. Function. Let's try this again. System select. Just so you can see it's picking up LS430. Now, this OBD is actually connected directly through your OBD that'll be inside in your driver's footwell over there. So there's nothing new or added on. That's literally, you're going to connect exactly like you did with the standard IS200 and it'll pull up all the information. Okay, so now that we've got that, we're going to go into engine and electronically controlled transmission. Okay, so the first test you want to do now is the fuel pump relay. So we're going to go into active test. I'm going to come down and we've got fuel pump. Now I do have a video on how the fuel system works and does explain the difference between the fuel pump relay and the fuel pump. Okay, it's a bit of a confusing one to call the fuel pump relay circuit opening relay, even though the only thing it powers is the fuel pump. Then they call the fuel pump relay actually a relay in the LS430 that diverted power via a resistor to slow the pump down. So it just gets hell of a confusing because people think, oh, it's a fuel pump relay, and no, it's not. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to push the button here and you're going to hear the relay click. There you go, I'll do it again. Off, on, and you can hear the pump working away there. Okay, so we're happy with that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go back to the test here. We're going to go to AC magnetic clutch relay, enter. And again, all your AC relays are in this little box here next to your ECU box. But I'm just going to click it off, on, or on. Okay, fantastic. So provided all the rest of the systems are okay, if you do have an LS430, the pump had a solenoid on it, so you can't use an LS430 pump with this setup, but you can use a GS430, SC430 2000 to 2005, or an LS400 3UZ-FE VVT-i 1998 to 2000. They're all bolted directly on. They do have slightly different fittings in terms of the pipes. especially when you compare like a 1UZ VVT-i to a 3UZ, like a GS or an SC. But more importantly, they don't have any solenoids on the back. They've got the simple wire, 3-wire plug, what you've got on your harness there, plug straight in, no problems there. Okay, so next thing we've got to do now is start her up. So what we're going to do is start her up, and like I said, I'm just going to do a quick recap because it's been 15 minutes now. So drive-by-wire, starter circuit will obviously work as soon as you start the car, so we know that's fine. Acoustic control induction system, we'll check the valve on the back. We'll then go through and do the VVT-i solenoids via the tech stream. We'll test each injector and coil individually. We'll check the tachos working, and we'll check the coolant temps working. But I can already see the coolant temp has actually lifted off the needle there. Okay. Anyway, so she's going to be loud now. I'm going to go through those. I'll just point to each test as I do them. But yeah, so again, just starting directly from your key. So 1, 2, 3. Drive-by-wire. Okay, starter circuit's fine, ACIS. We can see the valve has moved down. We're going to do oil control valve now. We're going to go around and do injectors and coils now. So we've got cylinder 1, cylinder 3, cylinder 5, cylinder 7, we've got cylinder 8, cylinder 6, right, cylinder 3, and then we've got cylinder 1. Okay, we're going to look at tacho. See, we've got tacho signal there. Okay, and then looking at coolant temp, it's climbing up there. Okay, so all in all, everything's working exactly as it should. All the cylinders are firing, the VVT-i is working, the oil control valve solenoids are working there. Everything is just plugging straight into your car. Everything in terms of the IS200 is working absolutely fine. Tacho, coolant temp, all the check engine lights, oil, battery, everything's fine. So that's basically all done for you. So the next thing we're going to do is obviously get this off, get it into a box and get it on its way to you. All right, and we'll just put all the photos of it done at the end of this video. If anybody else has any questions, please feel free to fire us a message here. You can find us on Facebook, message our business page. And we can do whatever quotes you want for etc, whatever you wanted. But yeah, that's about it guys. Thanks for watching and we'll see you again soon. Bye bye.